Welcome to episode 461, 10 years coaching, lessons learned, money. I literally can't believe how much noise most of us have in our heads about money. And with the tens of thousands of people I've coached, there is no correlation between how much money the person has and their money story. So many quite wealthy people have a lot of scarcity beliefs. And more than anything, as a whole, the way many of us were raised and our beliefs about money are keeping us in shame, judgment, or just stuck. Today, I'm sharing some of the biggest takeaways from the work I do and the people who join me as we figure it out. Are you ready? Here we go. This is Better Than Happy. I'm your coach, Jody Moore, and on this podcast, my objective, just so we're clear, is to change what you've been taught and have likely believed about yourself up until now. Here's what I believe about you. I believe that what you think is real is mostly imagined, and what you imagine is actually creating what's real. I believe that in the ways you desire to achieve, you 100% have the capacity to succeed. And finally, I believe that joy, love, and miracles are your God-given natural state of being. And anytime you feel far from them, the way back is much simpler than you think. But that's about to change. Are you ready? Let's do this. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode during our 10-year anniversary / birthday celebration of being in business here at Jody Moore Coaching. 10 years ago today, in May 2014, I got certified as a life coach, and my life changed forever for the better. I'm so grateful for that experience and for what it's allowed me to create in my own life, personally, in my relationships, in my family, and how it's allowed me to develop an understanding and an interest in all of these topics that I share with you here in the podcast. And I'm equally grateful to all of you for tuning in and listening and talking about what you're learning here and sending me questions, which, by the way, I haven't answered a question from the podcast hotline in a while. But if you want to leave me a question, I will be doing some of that once we get through the month of May of our 10-year lessons. And you can do that at 888-HI-JODY-M. Okay, so we're talking about money, and I want to begin by just reiterating what I kind of said in the intro, which is I literally cannot get over how much drama we have in our heads about money. And it's one of those topics that we are forced to either just stay in the struggle of or use it as an opportunity to grow because we can't really just opt out of it altogether. It's pretty tough to do anyway. I think there are some people who, quote unquote, live off the grid and maybe they totally opt out of participating in money. But for most people listening to this podcast, it's probably not an option that you want to choose. We can't just not use money, right? It's the way, not just within the United States of America, but many of you are listening in other countries and we all have our own versions of money and things like that. But it's how we exchange value in the world. And it's a necessary part of even our basic survival, right? And so this means that it's going to come up. I think of this the same way I think about people and food, right? Like if you have drama with people, which we all do, at least at times, it's really tough to just not have people in your life anymore, right? When I'm talking to teenagers who talk about how much they hate doing group work at school and how they can't wait to be done with school so they don't have to do group projects anymore. I'm like, oh, shoot. Heads up. You're going to have group projects, quote unquote, your entire life in some form or another, whether they be in your home, with the people you live with your roommates, with the people that you work with. It's pretty tough. I guess you could go live on a deserted island, but again, most of us don't want to do that. So we have to work through our people stuff or we suffer with it. And maybe we do some of both. And same with food, right? Getting yourself to eat healthy, eat the way you want to, change your eating habits. That's a tough thing to do, but we can't just be like, you know what, I'm done with food and opt out of food. We've got to eat food to survive. So anyway, money is one of those things. And I love that about it because it means it's a great opportunity for growth. Now listen, you might be sick of hearing coaches like me say, don't you just love growing? This whole growth thing is so good for us. So if that makes you cringe, I get it. Sometimes I feel that way too. I'm like, listen, I've had enough growing for a while. I'd like to just coast and stay the same. Okay. So I hear you. It's fine to feel that way. I just want to define the way I think about growth when it comes to money, because like I said, our only option is growing to a peaceful place if you're not in a peaceful place, or continuing to suffer. So what I mean by growing when it comes to money is to, number one, intentionally become who you want in your relationship with money. So we were all taught certain things about money. We had examples from the people that we were around when we were growing up, and we gathered ideas about money from either things that they literally said to us, but even more so from what we observed, right, in our environments about money. And that's okay. But I want you at some point have to intentionally choose how you want to think about money. There might be things that you were taught or witnessed that serve you really well that you want to keep. Maybe even a lot of it you want to keep. Great. Just decide on purpose. I want to keep that belief about money. I want to keep thinking about debt this way, or about, revenue this way, or about expenses this way, or about cash, or about investing. Like, you can keep anything you want. If there's anything that you don't want to keep, you don't have to. You can simply decide, I choose to no longer believe that about money. I dismiss that belief from my life and from my mind. And you do your very best to put it out of your mind and choose not to believe it anymore. You can do that as well. Some of you are going to have majority of what you taught you choose to dismiss. And some of you maybe just have a little bit of it that, again, either you were taught it or you just picked it up in some way, probably unconsciously when you were younger at some point in your life. Okay, so that's the first thing. Intentionally decide what you want to think and who you want to be with money. And that's what we do, in the coaching that I'm offering. So I hope that my clients are experiencing that. The next thing that I think about when I talk about our growth when it comes to money is improving your relationship with yourself. Not everyone has this issue, but a lot of people have this issue where the way they think about money is some of the problematic beliefs they have about money, I should say, are coming from their problematic beliefs about themselves. They make money mean something about themselves, whether or not they have what they feel is a lot of money, or they feel that they don't have enough money and they should have more money, or they want more money. They make that mean something about themselves and their own value and their own worth. And that is damaging. Even if you're like, I have tons of money because I'm so great, I'm amazing, I'm smart, I'm capable, etc. Well, we might think like that would feel good to believe that, right? It actually feels scary to believe that. I've coached people, and I have coach friends who have coached people as well. We've had conversations about it. It's so fascinating how the brain does this thing, right? People who have a lot of money and feel that that means something about their worth or value feel afraid. As they should, because if it's true that your money means something about your worth, then if your money changes, your worth has changed. And so that's shaky ground to live from. More commonly, I see people that don't have as much money as they would like, and they make it mean that they are weak or bad or wrong or incapable or something negative about themselves. So this is an opportunity to clean that up. It doesn't mean any of that. It can mean all kinds of things. The one thing I know it doesn't mean is anything about your worth or value. Period. The end. It's not good or bad or right or wrong or amazing and noble or shameful and disappointing. It just is, right? Okay, so much drama around money, which is why I love helping people with their money, because it gives us a chance to access that part of yourself that is really worth working on. So let's talk about wealth for just a minute, because I'm going to give you some things that are going to contribute to helping you create more wealth if you want to create more wealth. So before I share those things that I've observed in the last 10 years, I want to speak to the idea of generating wealth in and of itself, because I think that we often forget to pause and ask this question, right? It's like that line in Jurassic Park when Jeff Goldblum's character says, we spent so much time trying to figure out how to recreate dinosaurs that we didn't pause to ask ourselves whether or not we should. And I like you to pause and ask yourself whether or not you should or want to. for example, with something like this. Like, do we want to create more wealth? I personally do. I love creating wealth in my life and in my family, and I want to continue to create more of it, but I'm not here to say that everybody should. Okay. So the reasons why are how you check yourself. What are my reasons why? Or what are my reasons why not? Okay. So I like to create wealth because I think it's fun. I think it's actually a fun, fulfilling, rewarding way to live, to try to figure out, how do I create more value? How do I do more good? How do I help more people? How do I create more compelling offers that help people solve the problems they want to solve, or create the kind of joy and pleasure and happiness that people want in their life? How do I create more of that? Because asking myself those questions requires a lot of me, and it requires that I use a creative and critical thinking part of my brain that otherwise I prefer to just shut off. But when I do use it, I feel myself learn and grow and expand. And not to mention, having money on the other side of that is fun. It does make a lot of problems easier to solve. It does make your life more expansive. It does give more freedom. It does provide more opportunities for me personally as I create more wealth, and for my family and loved ones and people that are impacted by it, right? The next reason is I do believe that creating more wealth is expansive, not just for me, but it also lifts other people as well. So the bigger I grow my business, the more people I can hire and pay money to, so that they then have more wealth in their families and can go do whatever they choose to do with that, create goodness, create value, or use it to purchase the things that they want and need. So I think that creating more wealth serves everyone, because I understand that wealth is available and is unlimited. I don't feel that I'm taking money away from someone. If someone pays me money, then they've given me money that I can now pay to someone else for a good or service or something that I value. And then that person can pay that money to someone else, and that money can be exchanged infinite number of times. That's why wealth is available at an infinite level, because we can all keep exchanging the value an infinite number of times. So at any rate, I don't want to get too deep into that. I'm just sharing with you the way I think about money. You can take it or leave it, but some of you are going to decide, I don't want to create wealth, and that's totally fine. You don't have to be seeking. And when I say creating more wealth, I mean increasing your net worth, for example, right? Might be a good way to think about it. That does not have to be your goal by any means, for you to still have a really healthy, positive relationship with money that isn't keeping you stuck or moving you into a place of shame or judging others or anything like that. Okay. You can decide that you don't want to increase your net worth or accumulate more wealth. But again, we would know that coming from a healthy place by checking out your reasons. Okay. If your reasons are coming from a bunch of limiting beliefs, I'm going to call them a very self-helpy term, but it is the best way to describe it, meaning beliefs that you think are true that are limiting your potential. That's what a limiting belief is. Okay. So if it's coming from limiting beliefs like, it will take too long, I don't have that much time, it will require me to work super hard and I don't want to work hard, it's greedy, it's right, some kind of judgment of yourself or judgment of others. If it's coming from thoughts like that, I would just suggest you question them and clean them up. But it might be coming, and I do know a couple of people in my life who I feel like have really clean, healthy relationships with money for the most part. None of us are perfect at it, but pretty solid relationships with money, and have zero desire to, let's say, increase their net worth. And the way that they think about it, the reason for not wanting to create more is because they just don't want to do what's needed. Okay, it's a slightly different than like, I'll have to work really long and hard. If there are people who are like, no, I get it, it's actually not that much work. There's a lot of creative ways I could add a lot of value and not have to overwork myself. I just don't want to do even the basics. I just don't want to do, like what I'm doing right now is great. I like doing what I'm doing. I don't want to do something different. I don't want to think creatively. I don't want to figure out how to add more value. I'm just happy where I am. Cool. I think that's a great reason. And I love when people just tell themselves the truth like that. Again, there's no reason to go chase the next level just because a lot of other people are. That's actually not a good reason, right? Again, these people that are coming to my mind, they just don't find it that interesting. Look, all of us want to be challenged in some way, right? But the way that they want to be challenged might have nothing to do with making money. In other words, it might not be in their business or might not be in their job. They're not interested in I wonder how to move up in my company. They're still going to challenge themselves in other ways, but it might be through hobbies or just things they learn about because they're interesting that they choose not to monetize. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to live your life. No problem with that at all. And then the last one I've heard before, and I don't know, maybe this is a limiting belief now that I'm about to say it out loud, but some of my friends who I feel like have really healthy mindsets about money are just I just don't want to complicate my life, right? And so accumulating more wealth and increasing my net worth might complicate my life. I don't know. I guess I'm not wealthy enough to have the vantage point to be able to confidently say, no, you can be super wealthy and not complicate your life. But my guess is there are people that would say that. If you have a reason you like, it doesn't matter if it's a limiting belief or not. If you're I like that reason, and I don't walk around feeling sorry for myself all the time talking about how I wish I had more money, I just choose to be happy where I am. Cool, I'm in. For everybody else, you still can be happy where you are. In fact, I highly recommend it, that you be grateful and happy and delighted with where you are financially and otherwise, and decide it might be cool to increase your net worth or to add more wealth. So I want to give you 4 things to consider that, again, I've just observed in the many, many people I've coached and the things that I've studied and learned about money. Are you ready? Okay, so first of all, I want you to think about money as a result. And what I've noticed is that anytime we become too fixated on a result, we can create problems or slow ourselves down. So when it comes to money, sometimes being overly fixated on it means we're overly driven by money, right? If, let's say, I decide to try some kind of new business venture, and I think it's perfectly fine to want to make money in your business venture and to have that be even a big part of your motivation for it. But if that's too much of your motivation, if you're not also passionate and excited about what you do, what you offer to people, and really believing in your product or your service, and excited and fulfilled by the transformation or changes or benefits that you provide, then just being driven by money is going to be a tough way to go, right? It's going to make it really tough to succeed in that business venture. The other thing that I see this look like, though, is sometimes people say, yeah, I'm starting this business. I hear this a lot with coaches because I work with a lot of coaches, right? In Coach Access of the Lab, which you should come and join me in, by the way, if you're not in there. I hear coaches say all the time, I don't really care about the money. I'm not doing it for the money. And that's fine too. You don't have to be driven by money, or money doesn't even have to be a primary motivator for you. But that's a different side of the same coin, right? When we make the money be so significant, either I really want the money or I don't care and I don't want the money. It's sort of toxic either way. It can be anyway, right? Whereas what we want to do is back up from that result a little bit and understand that if we're trying to start a business venture, even if it's a nonprofit business, right? We're going to need money, first of all, to even just make the business run. It's going to require money. And so we've got to make money in order to fund the business. And if you want to also make additional money to have as revenue, that's okay too. So if you don't want a business, if you just want to do some service, if you want to serve people and help people, that's amazing and good. Just don't fool yourself. You want to tell yourself the truth, right? Because otherwise then we get frustrated and we have shame or judgment about our little side hustle, people call it. And they're like, well, I'm not charging for it. And then they're embarrassed to say that. And they think there's something wrong with that. Don't call it that. Just call it what it is, to yourself at least. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, but call it what it is, which is I'm choosing to serve in this way. And I'm even willing to put in the time and whatever resources I think are necessary to serve in the way I want to serve. And I cover that out of my own resources. Your time is a resource. Your money is a resource. Your knowledge and skills are a resource. If you're willing to cover that and just serve people, beautiful. But if you're going to start a business or a side hustle, it's okay to be, again, somewhat motivated by money. But if you're overly fixated on that, probably be challenging. Also, if you're just kind of afraid of that and backing away, you just want to question that as well. Does that make sense? Okay. The next thing I want to teach you is what I'm going to call a wealth mindset, and there's a poverty mindset. Okay. Now I know that is very binary, and I don't mean to make it so it's sort of a continuum, right? Where you might be leaning more towards one or the other. Don't use this to overly judge yourself or to create a limiting belief for yourself, but I'm going to use those terms wealth mindset and poverty mindset because I notice people who operate from a wealth mindset have a much easier time creating wealth. And people operating from a poverty mindset have a much harder time creating wealth. And even if you don't have wealth, it feels like, how can I operate from a wealth mindset if I don't have wealth, if I don't have enough money, if I'm barely scraping by or I'm not getting by, I'm going into debt in order to just cover my living expenses? How can I operate from a wealth mindset? You can. I'm not talking about your actions in the world. Your actions are going to change based on how much money you have, but your mindset can be in a place of wealth even before your money changes, and then your money will catch up. I am telling you, I have witnessed this over and over and over again for myself personally and for many of my clients. Okay, so what is a wealth mindset? Well, a poverty mindset, first of all, believes that money is your most valuable resource. Okay, and it makes sense that we believe that. If we have not enough money to live off of, and I mean buy groceries, let's say, and cover our basic living expenses. If I don't have enough money to do those things, of course my brain starts viewing money as my most valuable asset. And I start needing to hold on to money and figure out money at the expense of a lot of other things. Okay? A wealth mindset, on the other hand, views money is still a valuable resource, but it's not your most valuable resource. There are two things that are more valuable in a wealth mindset than money. One of them is time, and another one is what I'm going to call your energy. But I want you to think of it as mental energy for the most part. Nowadays, it's mental energy, which would include things like figuring something out, having to remember things, chatter in your head, and even like creativity and idea generation. Okay, so time and energy are more valuable in a wealth mindset than money. How could that be? How could your time and your energy be more valuable? Well, because your time is limited. Each of us has a certain number of hours and minutes in a day, right? And we cannot buy more, but what we can do is maximize those 24 hours with money. So people talk about buying back your time. That's what we mean. We don't get more than 24 hours, but we can utilize those 24 hours in a more efficient way that can generate more money by spending money. Okay? I'm going to give you some examples in a minute. Obviously, at a certain point in life, you can start hiring out the tasks that don't make you money, such as cleaning your house, cooking meals, grocery shopping, running errands. There might be things that you don't want to do, you don't enjoy doing, and you know they're not revenue generating, and so you choose to hire them out. That is a wealth mindset. But before you get to that point, if you're like, I can't afford to hire a housekeeper and pay someone to do my grocery shopping and all that, you can still work on your mindset. Here's how I would pay attention to it. When you are buying something at Old Navy, and they say to you, hey, would you like to sign up for our credit card? If you sign up for our credit card today, then you're going to save yourself, I don't know, let's say $30. Okay. Depends on how much you're buying, and it depends on what their offer is on that particular day. And maybe you're also going to get these points that you can apply in the future, and that will save you an extra whatever amount of dollars. And if you're in a poverty mindset, that's going to sound like a great deal. It's going to sound like, why wouldn't I, right? All I have to do is sign up for this thing. It doesn't cost me anything. They'll even say it doesn't take long. It takes just a few minutes to get pre-approved. Just, I don't know. I picked Old Navy only because I was there recently and someone offered me that. But all kinds of stores do this, right? So I'm not picking on Old Navy. I love Old Navy. So in a poverty mindset, it would sound like, why wouldn't I do that? In a wealth mindset, you would realize that even though it may not take long right now, it is going to take some time. And to me, what is a bigger tax on my life at this point is the energy required to go figure out where to set up a payment on that bill. And this is what they'll say, right? Because I'll say that sometimes, yeah, I just don't want to have to deal with like paying it back and everything. I'll just pay it now. And they'll go, oh no, it's really easy. You can just go pay it off as soon as it gets posted, right? As soon as the bill comes, you can just pay the whole thing off and you can never use it again if you want. And that's fine. But here's the thing. Now I have an open line of credit. I have to keep track of that card. I know these feel like little tiny deductions, like just put it in your wallet and forget about it. No, then I open my wallet and I have one more card to sort through to find the card, the debit card or whatever that I need. If I'm going to get rid of it, I have to go remember to cut up that card and get rid of it so that somebody else doesn't get a hold of it and charge up a bunch of stuff on it. If I'm going to set up auto pay, if I'm going to use that card more than once, then if I get anything changes with my bank account, I got to go figure that out. Like it is a little thing. I get it. It's not worth it. I don't want to have to still think about this clothing purchase beyond today. I want to purchase these clothes and walk home. I've said to people before, salespeople hate me because I will say things. They're like, but you could save $30. And I'm like, I will pay you $30 for me to not have to think about this purchase again after this moment. That's how much I don't want this card. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. I'm willing to pay the extra $30 to not have the tax on my time and my energy. And there's a reason that they so want people to sign up because they know that most people won't do those things. Most people won't pay it off right away. And most people will use it again and they'll end up paying interest on it and they're going to make a profit off of this. So even if I consider myself not most people, if I'm thinking in a wealth mindset, the answer is no, thank you. I don't want this coupon, this thing, this. Now, I'm not saying you can never sign up for anything. If you're like, this is going to be simple enough and easy enough, I'm willing to pay with my time and energy for this thing to save some money. There are times when you might choose that, when it makes sense. Okay. But anytime I do that, I just own for myself, I'm choosing to do this, but this choice is coming from a poverty mindset. And I don't beat myself up about it because I'm not always in a wealth mindset. Sometimes I still go to scarcity. Sometimes I still have a poverty mindset. But a wealth mindset is my most valuable resources are my time and my energy because I can use those to make more money. Good to know, right? Let's talk about the next thing I want to teach you that I've noticed is so powerful to think about with money, which is the best way. Again, this also comes from a wealth mindset. The best way to make money is by adding value in the world. The more value you can add to someone's life, the more money you can make. And I was on a call today in the lab Coach Access, where I help coaches build their businesses, which we're running a special on during the month of May because we just launched it. So go check it out at jodymora.com/coach access. Shameless plug because I want all my coach friends in there. But anyway, we were on a call and the sweet girl who came on the call, she got a little bit emotional. She said that she'd never been coached by me before, but that she had read my book a couple years ago and it changed her life. And then she dove in and she got certified as a coach and she's now running her own coaching practice. And she was emotional telling me how I've changed her life, which is so generous and kind and a gross overstatement. Like this work changed her life and she changed her life and God changed her life, right? I just got to be like one very minor side character in her story. but still it's awesome and cool. And I realized like I, in some tiny way, added value to her life by doing my work. And now she's adding value to other people's lives. That's why my financial situation has gotten so much better, because I've added exponential value without even realizing it all the time. It wasn't always planned and strategic, but that kind of exponential value adds exponential worth in ways I never even expected. Okay. So adding value is my favorite way anyway to create wealth. There are other ways you can create wealth. You can take advantage of people. You can rip people off. But I know nobody listening to this wants to do that. And there are a lot of things that people do that add value in the world that don't get directly rewarded with wealth. I want to acknowledge that. There are a lot of jobs. There's a lot of volunteer work. There's a lot of things happening in the world that is good, amazing value add work that doesn't get directly compensated for. But I do believe if you have a good relationship with money and you're up for figuring out how to align the two, the value that you want to add with the financial compensation that the marketplace will provide, that you can create a lot of wealth. Anyway, something to think about. Again, a lot of people, and before I thought about money the way I do now, before these 10 years of coaching clients, they view money as something that you get for trading your time, right? We exchange time for money at some point. And there are some jobs that are structured that way, but I promise you, it's not just your time. If you show up and put in the time and you don't add the value to the organization that they're looking for, they're not just going to pay you for your time. So just think about, how do you want to think about money in general when it comes to how we earn it? Last thing I want to say, and this is just a realization I had just this week, okay? I was talking to somebody who I have worked with before. So just by way of background information, this is somebody who I respect and value. I think that they have good ideas and good opinions, and we've worked together. I trust this person. But we were discussing a potential marketing strategy that I was considering. And I had one idea about how to do it. And this person, who's an expert in the strategy, way more than me, okay, had a different idea. And we were sort of going back and forth, like discussing like, yeah, but what about this and what about that? And again, I totally trust this person's expertise when it comes to the strategy of this particular marketing channel. But I couldn't get my head to feeling good about this method. Not because I think it's dishonest or wrong or bad or anything like that. It just didn't feel like me. I was like, I don't know how I could do that in a way that would feel authentic and genuine, that I could feel good about the work I was creating, that I could feel excited about sending people to it even. And this gentleman said something to me about, you don't have to worry about sending people. The algorithm's going to take care of it. The algorithm will send people. You don't even have to talk about it. And later on, after I got off that phone call and that discussion, I was thinking, why does that not sit well with me? Because I am a marketing person. I am a strategy person. And I preach sometimes similar concepts. So why am I struggling to feel good about this? And I realized it's because more than the algorithm of any marketing channel, I believe in the algorithm of the universe. I really do. If I can't get myself to feeling excited and confident and passionate, ideally at times, and motivated about what I'm doing, the algorithm of the universe will play out such that it will not succeed for me. I genuinely believe that to be true. Now, why am I talking about this today? Because this connects back to wealth. So, how do I generate wealth? You connect to the algorithm of the universe. The more abundant you feel, the more grateful you feel, the more you recognize the abundance that is literally your life. You woke up today. If you didn't go hungry today, unless you chose to go hungry for some reason, you're choosing to fast for a health reason or a spiritual reason or whatever else. If you are not hungry today and not worried about how you're going to feed your children, you are wealthy. If you have electricity, you're wealthy. If you have clean Drinking water. All you do is lift up a lever or turn a knob and clean water comes out. You're rich. You are. When you recognize that and you feel the abundance and you feel the gratitude and you feel the peace and security, this is what I hear a lot of people say. I want to make more money because I want to feel secure. I want to feel more secure. And I say, listen, as soon as you give yourself permission to feel secure, you will find it much easier to make more money. I promise this is true. That is the algorithm of the universe, my friends. I am a huge fan of all things law of attraction and manifesting and all of the woo-woo stuff. And if you don't like that, cool, just disregard this one. But I can't explain in any other way that I've been able to generate wealth and watch people around me generate incredible amounts of wealth. It doesn't make any sense at all. So there you go. Money. I'm going to give one last shameless plug for the Lab Coach Access, only because just a couple weeks ago, or not even that long, just recently, I taught a course in there all about money. For those of you that are coaches, we talk a little more about this money mindset, but I went into like, how do you know how much you should charge? And how do you know whether or not you should give things away for free? When should you? Which the answer is sometimes you should, by the way, I think, or you could. It might make sense to. And when do you charge? And how do you get over it if you're so uncomfortable charging and talking about your price? How do you get over that drama? What is that about? What's going on there? And then how do you address it when other people say, I don't have the money, I can't afford that, it's too expensive? So we did lots of like tactical, strategic kind of training in there, but also some of the mindset work. So for those of you in the Lab Coach Access, go check that out if you missed it. It's posted in there. If you're not in there, if you join by the end of May, you will get access to that class as well. I'd love to help you with your money stuff. All right. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week. Have a beautiful week, everyone. Bye-bye. If you find the podcast to be helpful, you're going to love the Lab. In Better Than Happy, the Lab, we experiment with applying all of it in your real life. Whether you're in the middle of a challenge and ready for some relief, or you're ready to commit to pursuing your dream goals and making them a reality, come join me in the Lab at jodymoore.com/the lab. That's jodymoore.com/the lab.